Welcome to Hort Culture, where a group of extension professionals and plant people talk about the business, production, and joy of planting seeds and helping them grow. Join us as we explore the culture of horticulture.
Welcome, friends. We're joined here today by Dr. Amanda Skidmore, who's the state apiarist for Kentucky. And we're going to get into all that. But before that, I want to clear the air that out of professional respect and also the amount of times that I'm sure Amanda experiences this, I will be refraining from all bee-related puns for the duration of the episode.
I do not believe that. Not for one nanosecond.
I almost just did a because. Sorry, because.
You just slipped it in when you said you were not going to do that.
But here's the thing. If this wasn't her every day, if she weren't living in it day to day, I would feel more comfortable about it. But, you know, we want to be a change of scenery. We want to be the change we wish to see in the world. That being said, I think we talked about this last time, but do you have any bee-related jokes or puns or things that don't suck and that you haven't gotten tired of hearing because they're so original, and can I steal them?
Oh gosh, you should have asked me this question like 5 minutes ago so that I could come up with something. But it's usually the same, you know, anytime you can replace the letter B in a word for bees, it just comes out naturally. I can't help it at this point.
Throw a buzz in there randomly, or, you know, or maybe honey on if you're trying to switch it up.
Sting.
Yeah. Oh, Sting. Yeah, that could go for music or yeah.
There's all kinds of puns out there. I would say there's one on our website that was an unintentional pun right now. So.
Did you say unintentional pun?
Unintentional pun.
Okay, I need to know more about how an unintentional pun on the State Apiarist webpage works.
Yeah, so we are going to talk hopefully a little bit about yellow-legged hornet, and we've been developing our webpage, but we wanted to get a little bit of information up there. So the page currently says yellow-legged hornet coming soon. And it should say information about yellow-legged hornet coming soon, but it's kind of like a double meaning of like, hey, it's potentially coming soon. So it's been amusing for folks as I've talked about it, and they've been like, go check out the website.
Word is going to get out that you are dropping those things out of helicopters. I mean, word's going to get out. So yeah, she said they were coming soon. Absolutely. Not the meaning of that situation. Not the meaning.
I had 45 minutes of pun-related questioning, but I guess we can pivot to. Would you mind? You're a friend of the pod. Have been on been a guest before. Would you mind to just remind folks what does it mean to be the state apiarist? And then I think let's jump right into the imminent yellow-legged hornet.
Coming soon.
Coming soon.
So I am the state apiarist with Kentucky Department of Agriculture. It's kind of a multi-part job where I am the state inspector for bees. So if you are transporting bees out of the state of Kentucky, most of the states, including all the states that surround us, like Ohio and Tennessee and Indiana, require that moving bees or even moving used equipment for bees comes with a health certificate for the state that is then registered with their state apiary program. So I do inspections for folks to be able to move their bees, but I also do just regular health inspections. So if folks want to have me come out and look at their different setups, if they've got concerns about something, if they think they have a disease issue, they're worried that they might have had a pesticide exposure, then those are all things that I come out and help investigate and spend afternoons in apiaries and talk with folks. And then another large portion of what I do is kind of the outreach side. So talking with beekeepers. We have 76 bee clubs in the state right now. So we have one big state association, which is the Kentucky State Beekeepers Association. And I work really closely with them. But there are at least 76 individual bee clubs across the state. And it's always fun because we find more as we get more outreach and find more people. Most are associated with their extension offices, but it's a really great local place to find information about beekeeping in your area. So I try to make it out to those bee clubs as frequently as possible, and usually get to talk with folks and share what's going on in the honeybee world. And then I also do a lot of outreach and education with youth, so different school programs, and then of course outreach with the general public at different festivals or different things like the state fair.
And there's only one of you, no clones, just one of you on the road. It seems like a lot,
Yes.
especially certain times of the year. And we see you're broadcasting from your car today. I bet that you are off to some educational program or something.
Yep. I say I cover all 120 counties. I try to do my best to like group things, if I know I'm headed to an area to get everything all in one day, but it can be a lot to keep up with. There are a lot of beekeepers in Kentucky. We estimate that there's probably close to 6,000 beekeepers and 50,000 hives in the state, and those are probably really conservative estimates.
Wow. So I will just point out I'm fighting for my life to not make puns.
You will not be successful.
This is my
You won't offend me. You won't offend me.
Maybe
I don't know. It's not
material.
an offense. It's a personal standard. Instead, I'll ask maybe a dumb question. Why would someone move bees? Like, what's the moving bees? What are the reasons someone does that?
Yeah, so most of the bees in Kentucky, once they are purchased, stay in the apiary location where they get set up. Kentucky does not have a large commercial pollination industry. A lot of other states do. That's where you hear about people sending bees to pollinate almonds in California. So they will box up their hives, put them on a big truck, send them to California for almond pollination season, and then move them around the country to wherever the next pollen and nectar flow is going to be. So in Kentucky, we don't see a whole lot of that. We would say 5% or less of our beekeepers would consider themselves to be commercial and moving their bees in and out of state. But there's other situations where folks that maybe live on the border between Ohio and Kentucky may move their bees from one side of the river to the other. And so you have to have a certification for that. And then we have folks who maybe are moving out of state that are sending bees to their new home location. They want to take their things with them. A lot of times we don't see huge moves. So like for hobbyist beekeepers, typically if you were going to move from Kentucky to Oregon, you would probably sell the bees that you have in Kentucky and not take them with you to Oregon. But for larger commercial folks that have hundreds of hives, that would not be uncommon. And then the other reason that folks will move hives in and out is for those pollination services. So sometimes they will move them just locally in state or to one of those surrounding states.
I think some of our orchards kind of do that. Either they're set up semi-permanent at the orchard or they move in. We're talking, I guess, small commercial scale moves.
Yes.
It's not thousands of hives, it's dozens or what have you in orchards. I've worked with some orchards that they'll have some kind of local service, and it's usually pretty localized versus moving stuff around across states and this, that, and the other.
And that's a great part for Kentucky because it means that we are not exposing our bees to the high levels of stress or moving a lot of bees in and out that may be bringing pests and diseases. So we have a little bit more stable control or at least understanding of what our pests and diseases look like than some of the areas that send bees in and out all the time.
As you were talking about the moving the bees to follow the nectar flow, my mind went to like old school cowboys driving the cattle across the plains, but they're like bee boys, and so maybe they would ride horses, or I don't know what, maybe something flying. I don't know, but
the movie that plays in Brett's mind for everyone is pretty spectacular all the time. I'm pretty sure Brett has got the best movie just playing.
It's vivid. It's vivid and hard to follow.
It's like a bee wrangle. It's like we're wrangling them bees. It's probably pretty amazing.
Amanda,
it's usually on large semi trucks that can hold up to 400 colonies. So it's
less romantic, but more functional.
Usually when I see that on the news, a truck is something's happened to it. Every now and again, you'll see a truck on the news that's broken down or turned over, and there's just a situation. And I've seen that, and I always kind of, that always catches my attention when I see that on the news feed. But it happens, doesn't it? I mean, yeah.
It does. Our goal is for it to not happen, but we do have, I work really closely with our emergency response folks in case something like that were to come up. We've been in conversations about, what would be the different plans for that? How, if I'm on one side of the state and I need to get to the other side of the state, how could I do that? And, we've walked through a lot of those planning steps and who needs to know what. And I'm saying we can probably do a whole podcast on emergency response for bees.
Amazing. Yeah. Never thought about
Amanda,
it.
is there just such a need for bees that they have to pull them out of Kentucky and go, or like why is Kentucky traveling to California? Like why, I mean, Florida's a little bit closer. I know like the citrus groves, it just seems like there would be closer beekeepers, but maybe there's just not enough. Why is that usually happen? Do you know?
Yeah, so it really just depends on the beekeeper and their connections. There are a lot of beekeepers in Kentucky that'll go to California, Florida, Michigan, and when I say a lot, that's at 5%. So it's a very small number of beekeepers to begin with coming out of Kentucky. There's other states like North Dakota that have more bee colonies than they do people in the state, just because that's a great site for overwintering your bees, and it's very popular to move bees from those states around, just depending on where some of those pollen and nectar flows are. So thankfully, we don't see a lot of that movement in Kentucky, just because it helps from a disease perspective. But there are a portion of our beekeepers who do go in and out of state.
If I know you do site inspections. What would you say, if you could explain to kind of the listeners, what the average beekeeper that you go out and you're doing an inspection or visiting with an agent or whatever? I mean, what does that look like? How many hives? Or I'm assuming much smaller than that. What we're talking about, much smaller scale.
So a good part about the state apiarist position is that it was created due to the beekeepers asking for there to be someone representing them in Department of Agriculture. And this was back in the 1980s, 1990s. And so part of that is that I do these inspections, and they are free to beekeepers who would like to schedule one. And so I usually will schedule them with folks, and I try to get out there as fast as I can. But if I know I'm going to be giving a presentation in a county and we don't have like a disease issue, we just have someone who would like to ask questions or like to go through their hives, I'll usually try to schedule it with, hey, I'm going to be in your area this time. Let's see if we can meet then. And I will show up. I will work with the beekeeper. Typically, I will have them handle most of their equipment, most of their bees. I would like to use their equipment, mostly because even though I have a truckload of equipment sitting behind me, I take that all over the state. So I don't want to accidentally expose someone's bees to potential pests or diseases. So I like to use their equipment. And I will have them open their hives up, and we'll start going through and look for things like honey resources. We'll go down to where we're looking for if we've got any signs of diseases, the brood area where the queen is laying her eggs, and the nurse bees are taking care of those eggs is a really important spot for finding different diseases or looking for signs of diseases. You can tell a lot of things by getting into the brood area. If the queen is actively laying eggs, if there's any, signs of a bacterial or viral infection, a lot of those things become really visible when you get down to that brood area. So I will work with them to get to those areas of their hives and have conversations about what's going on. If there's something that I can't visually identify, we have a great relationship with Florida Department of Agriculture, which actually has a bee diagnostic center. And so we send samples down to Florida Department of Agriculture for identification of things like viruses, which there's over 20 bee viruses that bees can potentially pick up from mites or exposure to different things. And those are really hard to be able to like visually diagnose in a lot of cases. So you really do have to have some of those molecular tools to be able to know exactly what is potentially harming the bees.
Well, for anybody who's tuning in and thinking, "Wait a second, this is Hort Culture. I thought we were what are we talking about bees?" It's interesting to note that the USDA actually classifies honey as a specialty crop, along with all of our fruits, vegetables, nursery crops, and all that kind of stuff. In addition to the fact that it fits really well with horticultural crops, and people who are interested in one are often interested in the other. But not to be the
Say,
negative. Oh, go ahead.
oh
Yeah.
no, I was just gonna just add the 80% of our specialty crops are pollinated by bees, particularly honeybees in the U.S. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of importance to having pollinators
Well, now
around.
you've added even more gravity to me being in the negative Norbert here, Amanda, because you're here to tell us about all the wonderful and amazing things that you do, and we're really appreciative to have you working for the producers in the state. But you have some what do we say, concerning news, or some concern on the horizon about these yellow-legged hornets. So, can you give us the rundown on what's going on?
Yeah, so yellow-legged hornet is an invasive species that comes from Southeast Asia, and in the summer of 2023, a beekeeper, he was a first-year beekeeper in the state of Georgia near Savannah, um, was outside watching his beehive one evening and noticed that there was a large insect that was coming and stealing his bees from the hive before they could go inside. And he got really upset by this, so he took a big stick and he knocked them down, and he collected this sample that he then took to his county extension office for identification. And it eventually got to the USDA, and when I say eventually, it only took a couple days to get it to the USDA to be identified as this invasive hornet species. And since then, there have been eradication efforts by Georgia Department of Agriculture and now South Carolina Department of Agriculture to try to eradicate this species from North America. And there are currently reports in counties near Savannah, Tybee Island, Charleston, Hilton Head. And the reason that I kind of highlight those areas is that these are very um, popular areas for people to go on vacation. And if we've talked about invasive species at all, they like to hitchhike. And so one of the major concerns is that folks that are maybe traveling to one of those areas may, set a camper up for 2 weeks, and then a um, potential hitchhiker will catch a ride, back to Kentucky and start nests. And this was a theory that they had for a long time, that this hitchhiking could be how this hornet spreads. Not only naturally on its own, it can move 40 miles a year if it was not being contained, but with this carrying them from place to place. So right before Christmas, in York County, South Carolina, it's a county that is about 250 miles, a little bit further away than any other reports in the state. So it's kind of this oddball report. And it wasn't that just an individual was found, but that an entire reproductive nest of these hornets was found. And the scary part for us in Kentucky is that that's less than 250 miles as the crow flies from the corner of our state, the eastern corner. So they're much, much closer. They did kill a lot of those reproductives when they removed that nest around Christmas time, but uncertain how many potential queens might be overwintering. So it's something that is putting us on high alert to be making people aware of, and kind of talking about what to do if you find one, see one, what they look like, how they operate, why they're such a big deal. So that's kind of the background to where they came from
And you
and
say
why they're
nest.
concerned.
Are they ground nest, or are they like typical bald-faced hornet kind of nets up high, or what are people looking, or
Yeah, that's
what
a
are we
great
looking for?
question. So they are very unique in that they can have up to 3 different nests in a given year. So their life cycle typically starts, if we start in the spring, because we're in the spring now, um, March and April. The queens that overwintered are going to be coming out of their hibernation. So they typically overwinter in like old potted plants or mulch or any kind of protected area that they can find. Then they will begin to start an embryo nest, and those embryo nests tend to be about baseball sized as the queen is working on them. It also looks very similar to the embryo nest of yellow jackets. So the queens start these embryo nests, and they can be on the eaves of houses, they can be on bushes, they can be inside things like people's grills they have found, like their backyard grills. And we've had some people find them in like beekeeping equipment as well, just because association. And so they will start these embryo nests in the spring. And once she lays her eggs, they will have the first generation of workers. They begin to either build out that embryo nest or they move to a new location and start a primary nest. They will build up this primary nest across the summer. Those typically get to be about basketball sized. And then when we move towards the end of the summer and they get ready to start making reproductives, they will relocate that primary nest, creating what is called a secondary nest, typically above 60 feet in the air. Georgia has seen a close association with pine trees. We don't know that that will be where we find them, but we're kind of tracking, what we see is happening in Georgia. And those nests, by the end of the summer, can get to be the size of a car tire or bigger, and can hold up to 6,000 individuals. So that is a very stressful time. They will kind of be hanging like a bald-faced hornet's nest. And they are different from bald-faced hornets, which are here native in Kentucky. Those are the hornets that have the really white faces and white coloring. And they're different from the European hornet, which is also here in Kentucky. European hornets are a little bit larger and they're kind of mahogany colored, kind of this really red-brown with bright yellow coloring. The yellow-legged hornet gets its name because the ends of its feet are bright yellow, and its body is typically very dark, and its abdomen, the very end of the bug, has yellow bands around it. But it's very identifiable by its feet, so that's why it has the name yellow-legged hornet. But it's important for people to know, because this hornet was established in Europe for many, many years, it is also known as the Asian hornet. So if you're doing your research and you're looking up information on this species and you kind of want to know what's going on, or you see it being referred to as Asian hornet, it's the same insect. It's just here in the United States we call it yellow-legged hornet.
So I'll just say the flora and fauna of Southeast Asia are built different. Man,
Yes.
there's so many things that are some of the invasives, and they have such strong competitive advantage. It seems like in so many different ways. It's always pretty. I mean, you could step away from yes, this is going to have negative impacts for us, but there's also a certain, I don't know, awe that I feel sometimes about the natural just power of these. Anyway,
they deal with the exact opposite, right? They get problems from the insects that we have in the U.S. that go there that are also
So we
confusing.
trade back and forth.
Can you tell me, about how big these are? Are they noticeably bigger than other things? Are they?
Yeah, I'm wondering about
I'm especially
lookalikes
thinking
and
anybody sees a
Yeah.
hornet, they're going to kill it. Don't do that. But
Yes.
yeah.
So we are working on a lookalikes document. There are
good.
really great information already on South Carolina and Georgia Department of Agriculture's websites for folks if they want to start looking. We are working on one with folks at UK. We're working with the state entomologist's office. But these hornets are going to be similar in size to bald-faced hornet, about an inch. And then they are going to be a little bit smaller than the European hornets that we have. So important things to know is that they do have a pretty painful sting. So if you do think that you have one, be very careful with collecting that specimen. Or if you think you have a nest, make sure that you're not just shooting it out of the tree. That would be very dangerous for someone. Feel free to give us a call and we can help with not only trying to identify what species is there, but also helping with resources for that nest removal that would be safe. because we don't want to see people getting stung and hurt if we can avoid it.
So first steps, I mean, you just mentioned submission. What's the first steps if someone suspects at home that they may have something that may be the yellow-legged hornet? I mean, what do they
Yeah.
do? Who do they contact?
So if they are able to, we would love for them to be able to take some pictures. A lot of folks have smartphones and cameras right there with them, so a picture would be super helpful of the hornet itself, if there's a potential nest nearby. If it's safe to collect one and someone feels comfortable collecting one, they can bring that to County Extension, and you guys will be helping us make those connections. We are working on getting our website ready to go. Hopefully by the end of the month, we will have a reporting tool on the Kentucky Department of Agriculture website. Like I mentioned, we have our coming soon page. But for now, folks are more than welcome to reach out to me with anything they have that is concerning, and I'm happy to take a look at it and help with the identification process. Because our goal would be to identify that we have the hornet here in Kentucky, which we currently don't know if we do. We do not believe that we do, and we don't want to try to convince people that we do, right? We want to be clear that it's still just a potential invasive species, but because of how close that nest was found to us, it's a much more real potential that the species could get here. So eradication would be our first step, right? Identifying that we have the hornet and then finding where that nest is so that we can take the nest out and any of those reproductives that would continue the population in the future. The biggest concern and the biggest concern that we see for our beekeepers is that the hornet's diet is in urban areas documented at 70% honeybees. So it is a predator of honeybees. And then in like agriculture or forested area, only 30% of its diet's honeybees. But then you have to start thinking about what else makes up its diet, and that's a lot of our native pollinators. And so not only are we going to potentially see impacts on the honeybee population and the honeybee industry, we're going to have impacts on those native pollinator species here in Kentucky. And then those could even, if it builds up enough, lead to economic impacts to our specialty crop producers who rely on those pollinators to pollinate their crops.
Are we
So there's a
talking?
lot of connections.
I was just sorry. I was just going to ask. If I'm in Georgia and I have, these yellow-legged hornets around, what does that look like for my bee yard? Is it just complete decimation or complete wipeout, or is it just weak hives? What is that exactly? As far as
Yeah.
percentage loss or whatever.
So it's easier to look at the example that has happened in Europe. So the same situation began in France in 2003 and has progressively spread across most of the European continent. Last year, Portugal reported 35% loss to their honey, like their honey sales, because they were not able to get enough honey. We are also seeing some countries reporting up to 30% losses to their bee colonies. And that if you have a hornet's nest very closely located to your apiary, it can knock out 80% of your hives if you've got it very, very close to you. We have not gotten a lot of reports from Georgia and South Carolina yet about what they're seeing on the ground, and a lot of that just comes with time and getting that information distributed to folks. But we also see that it took this large buildup of time for them to see this economic impact that's happening in Europe right now. And I think it's a good warning sign for us that if this is something that we don't take seriously now, in 10, 15, 20 years, it could be something that's really impacting our food supply.
Wow. Is there
Amanda,
any?
you said
Go
they're
ahead, yeah.
called the. You said Ray. I'm trying to ask a question.
Listen,
You said they're
no.
also called the Asian hornet, but just like for our listeners, this is different than when we saw the giant Asian hornet, aka
Correct.
the murder hornet that we heard about
Correct.
a couple years ago, right? Okay.
Yes, this is Vespa velutina, which is different than the northern hornet, which is the large hornet that was up in Oregon, or not Oregon, up in Washington State. They've not reported it being present in Washington State since 2022. So they're pretty confident in their eradication process working to remove it, at least from the US. I haven't had any updates from the Canadian side, but I know they've been working on it as well. So
Well,
yes, these are two different species.
Now you say Vespa, and now I'm thinking of Italian riding around eating gelato on the little Vespa. But
Once again,
we have a lot of vespid wasps, so like the family of vespid wasps. That's including your paper wasps, all your hornets, the black and red wasps that fly around and make the little nests on people's porches, like the smaller ones. So there's a lot of relatives, and that's one of the things that they have documented, is that most of Kentucky falls within the range that would be habitable for the hornet. So several years ago, there was a study done that kind of modeled areas of the world that would be good host habitat. And almost the entire state of Kentucky and the entire southeastern United States is highlighted as being very prime habitat for this hornet species. And that study came out before we moved our growing zones, and kind of really looked at hey, we're getting warmer winters than what was expected. And so more than likely that map is going to shift upward as well, into states like Ohio and Indiana, much more so than where it's at currently.
So I think this is, I'll step in and say I think this is the power of marketing, because I can remember you couldn't turn around and not see something about the murder hornet.
Yes.
And instead we have this. And so tell me if this is a fair characterization. The murder hornet got a lot of public visibility. This thing is significantly more concerning to entomologists at this point. Is that fair to say?
Yes and no. I think that there's a lot of publicity that's gone on in South Carolina and Georgia because that's where the focus for eradication has been happening. But it doesn't have a fancy name, and it's one of those balances, right? With a fancy name that really gets people's attention, of course it's going to be on all the blogs and everyone's going to be talking about it. But then it gets, I still get calls from people saying, "Oh, I swear I saw a murder hornet." Yeah. And so there's kind of that balance we need to find, because there's some really great large species of pollinating wasps that live in Kentucky that are doing really great things. One in particular that a lot of times gets confused with other hornets is the cicada killer. We have the eastern cicada killer here in Kentucky, and it's got a scary name, right? Cicada killer. But what it does is it is going to be looking for those dog day cicadas in summer, and it will be taking them, picking them up, and it will sting them and kind of paralyze them, take them back to their nests, and feed those to their young. So it's really great for helping with that cicada control. And they are just really cool pollinators, but they're really, really big wasps. So being familiar with the differences between some of our good wasps and things that we like to see versus this invasive species is going to be important for folks.
It's like its name's too cute.
Cicada killer kind of sounds like a bluegrass metal fusion band.
I love it.
They have these aggressive
electric
names.
mandolin. Yeah,
I say they are really cool.
How big are those? Relatively speaking,
cicada killers can be up to 2 to 3 inches, so they can be much larger than this particular yellow-legged hornet. These are the ones, and you guys, you see them a lot when you go to campgrounds, and they are about waist to knee high, and they will dive bomb people. They actually have a really interesting, very territorial behavior that's been documented to try and keep their territory clear of other cicada killers. And so they will do this dive bombing, but very, very rarely will anyone be stung by them. They're very darty, very fast. They don't want to be around humans, but they will kind of let you know that they're there.
Is all of this going on? Is this affecting the industry, like package bees movement or anything like that? How's that affecting like order sources and things? Because I know a lot of those
Yeah.
are located kind of down southish.
So that's one of the conversations that we had earlier this spring, being concerned with package movement, because we do get a lot of our bee packages. So you can either buy bees locally from a beekeeper in the
Mhm.
spring, catch them locally through a swarm, or purchase them in packages that come up from beekeepers in typically southern states. Um, Talking with Georgia Department of Agriculture, the areas of Georgia, the counties in Georgia where those packages are coming from, are on the opposite side of the state from where their eradication zone is. They also, by the time the packages are moving to Kentucky, those queens should have already been establishing their nests in Georgia. So the likelihood of a queen coming in on a package truck is very, very low.
Gotcha.
But it's something that we've been talking with some of the folks that are selling packages. Just, hey, keep an eye out, just in case you see something that's off.
Gotcha.
And throughout the summer, for folks that are interested, we're really encouraging people to put out monitoring traps, especially if they are beekeepers. But anyone can participate in this. And it's just taking an old juice bottle, and there's a couple different really good how-to videos from Georgia Department of Ag and South Carolina Department of Agriculture on how to turn those juice bottles into traps for hornet species. And then we use a bait that's called Georgia juice. It gets its name because Georgia did all the testing to figure out what was the most attractive bait for hornets. And it's a mixture of two parts grape juice to 1 part brown sugar. So if you've got half a cup of brown sugar, you'd use a full cup of grape juice. And that sounds very sweet and like it would attract honeybees and potentially be risky to keeping near an apiary. But once that starts to ferment, the honeybees are not interested in it any longer. So even if you were to put it in your garage for a couple days and let it get a little funky, the hornets are very interested in that breakdown of rotting things. In Georgia, they've found these hornets, on roadkill on the sides of the road before, or dead fish, or in grills, because people, when they grill, right, you've got leftover residue of kind of that meat. And so they have found the most effective thing is to use this Georgia juice mixture, and then monitor those containers to see if yellow-legged hornet is in a particular area.
Now, if I get a question from my extension treasurer, and on my receipts it says Georgia juice, I'm going to send her questions to you.
Well,
She's
yeah.
going to be like, "Why are you making? What is this Georgia juice?" I'm
That's
like, "Oh,
something we're just calling it
Hornet
bait.
hooch.
It's marketing.
Hornet hooch, Alexis said. I like that.
Oh, Hornet hooch.
I was not
Perfect.
expecting to get my cocktail of the summer recipe from this episode.
I did not realize this was going to
heavily fermented grapefruit juice and brown sugar. That would do numbers in the Pacific Northwest.
Not only are they
100%.
not good, they're very fun. I mean, they drink Georgia juice and Hornet hooch or what have you. So yeah,
I like that. I haven't heard it called that before. So there you go.
Alexis may have coined a phrase. So in Kentucky, we make Hornet hooch.
It's I'm just imagining like prison hooch. Like that's just what this makes me think of.
Yeah, or like you show up to a party in college and there's a garbage can full of some liquid that you're allegedly supposed to drink.
Yeah, allegedly.
Or whatever. I read about it.
Yeah. Brett saw it online on one of the entomology forums. Yeah, one of the entomology websites. Oh my goodness. So,
well, Amanda, what else would you want people to know? Our listeners are kind of a blend of, there's some farmers and producers. There's probably I'd imagine there's some beekeepers, there's extension folks. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you would definitely want people to know?
I think that it's mostly just being aware that this species is going to be a threat to the agriculture industry as a whole, not just to beekeepers. It's not just one that's going to be impacting honeybees, but it's got some downstream effects. So even folks that are interested in protecting native pollinators should be interested, or folks that require pollination for their crops. So it's going to be a group effort should this hornet get here to be able to push it out. So just staying alert if folks are interested in setting a monitoring trap up, and just keeping an eye out for the hornet this summer. We'll probably have more information on that coming out as we get things off the ground. It takes a while to get some of these programs, especially when we've got a smaller team of folks working on getting this information out. That it's not as fast as we want, but hopefully we will have some monitoring resources for folks here in the next few weeks.
Well, if you're looking for ideas, if you get into a meeting and you're pitching, we need to really up the marketing of this. You might consider Death Hornet, Apocalypse Hornet,
yes, Apocalypse, yellow-legged Apocalypse Hornet, yeah.
Beelzebuzz.
Ooh, Beelzebuzz.
If
now
a
you're
little
talking.
bit more off
That's going to get the people
kind
going.
of idea.
And they only drink hornet hooch. Okay.
Yeah, they drink hornet hooch.
They're fun. They're fun hornets, but dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the hot sauce that has hornet hooch in it, and it's sort of like the sting of the apocalypse hornet or what. I don't know, something. We'll just have to think about it.
Brett is going to get the people going. He is.
We're trying to laugh because there's so many serious things happening. And this is the very one, and so we're not taking making light of it, but I just learned about it not long ago, and was really glad we were going to be able to talk to you so quickly about it, because it's.
Well, thanks for letting me share what we know right now. I'm happy as we learn more to come back and share more.
I guess if they want to keep up to date, it's a pretty good time to plug. We've gotten many positive comments from people that have taken part. Are you still doing your monthly sessions, your online sessions? What's the schedule, or how do people get plugged into that?
Yeah. So I do a monthly state apiarist meeting. They are on the fourth Tuesdays of the month at lunchtime. It's kind of like a lunch and learn. So it's noon Eastern, 11 Central. If folks are interested in participating, they can reach out to me through my email, which is pretty simple. It's my first name, Amanda, with a period, Skidmore @ky.gov. So more than happy to have folks reach out to me, and I can get them up to date. We go through all sorts of different things. I kind of cover what events are happening in the States related to beekeeping, different places that I'm going to be, talk about what's going on in hives at that particular time of the year, and then if there's any big pieces of news or information. I think maybe the biggest thing for folks who are beekeepers to be aware of is that we do have the U.S. beekeeping survey that's going to be open again in April. So if folks are interested in participating in that, happy to get them connected.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Brett's thinking of another pun. I can see it on his face. I mean,
no, I've tried. I did my best.
You almost kind of blew it out with the Beelzebub, or yeah.
I did the best. I held off as long as I could.
You did.
I'm looking up how to make hornet hooch. So
I don't know if you should have that on your browsing history, Lex. I'm just going to go on record and say it, hornet hooch. But
listen, I have the information to back it up. So
yeah, it's a technical recipe we're making. It's going to show up on recipes.
Contact the state apiarist. Okay, I don't want to hear anybody.
This is expert review.
I could see some T-shirts coming out of this. So
hornet hooch, yeah.
Yeah, well, and think about a college team who's the Hornets, making hornet hooch. I don't know.
We'll do a collab. Hort people love hornet hooch. Yeah, it's going to be a collaboration. Yeah, I love it. Whatever it takes to bring awareness.
Please don't drink this. It will.
Do not drink this.
Amanda's like, oh no.
Roughly based on Georgia juice,
this has gone
raises its own questions. Okay, we'll kick the can back to Georgia on that one. We're like, listen, Georgia started this. Yes. Thank you, Georgia, for coming up with that recipe.
They had to just ferment everything down there.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to save us and take us out here. So if you enjoyed the episode, be sure to give us a like or a rating on your local podcasting app that you have done. That you use. If you have not done that, if you've been listening for a long time and you just haven't taken the time, it takes a few seconds and it really helps us out to keep justifying doing this. You can email us at hortculturepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at hortculturepodcast. leave us a like, give us a follow, comment below, or comment on this episode or there about what you might want to see in future episodes. Thank you again to Amanda for joining us and learning us real good about the yellow-legged hornet, and as well as the support that you provide for the bee community in Kentucky, which I think is absolutely amazing. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you down the road.